of guests today, notably Ian and Deborah from Audit Wales, our internal audit colleagues, and lots of officers and lots of some faces familiar and some unfamiliar. We'll get to who needs to be invited as introduced as we go along. First things first, item 1, apologies for absence. Any apologies been noted today? Oh yes, I know Councillor Barry's not here yet. I don't know if he is intending to join us today. I knew he was only going to attend for part of the meeting, so if he does, we'll see him when he comes here.
I'm adding, yeah, he's hoping to get in a little bit later.
Thank you, Garrett. Okay, thank you. Move on to item 2, declaration of interest. Members reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect to matters contained in this agenda. I see one hand up.
I've got a declared interest in the fostering report. I got a child on SGO, so I'll have to leave for that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any others? No, I look around the room, I see nothing. Excellent. We'll therefore go on to the minutes of the previous meeting, which was back on the 15th of January. They're here for information and accuracy. Any issues anyone wishes to raise? Okay, thank you very much. We'll quickly whiz on to the action log. I see 2 items which are complete. And I see item 2 says next time the risk register comes here, which is not today, which takes us to item 1, which has been rolling forward. Liam, you're going to give us a brief update about the risk training workshops and role of head of policy improvements.
Yes, sorry, Chair. So the bear with me a second. Wasn't aware I was picking this one up. So yeah, sorry. Item 1 on the action log, the forward work programme. It said it'll be addressed once the head of policy and performance post is filled. That post isn't filled at this point in time. And we'll bring that back to the next committee with a further update.
Okay, we'll keep it on the action log until for the next meeting. Thank you, Liam. Takes us to agenda item 5, which is the Audit Wales annual audit summary. And this is rather an oops. Contained in the papers today is the audit summary for 2022, which is last year's report, which was issued in January 22. So effectively that paper is withdrawn, and we will receive, I believe, the audit summary for 2023 at our next meeting. Deborah, is that your understanding of where you are with the audit summary for this year?
Yeah, yes, Chair, I'll come on that. Yeah, we've sent the draft to the council just for a fact check, but don't anticipate any issues really with that because there's no new messages in that report. So I imagine it will come on the next agenda for the GAC. Yeah.
Thank you, Ian. So we very quickly move on to agenda item 6, which is the organisational response to Audit Wales digital review, and not, as it says on the agenda, to receive the report to Audit Wales, which we've done in a previous meeting. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Richard Evans is with us today, who's going to perhaps introduce the item.
Okay, the purpose of this report is to provide an update on progress and provide the organisational response form in relation to the digital review carried out by Audit Wales. At Governance and Audit Committee on the 15th of January, Audit Wales presented their report and findings regarding the digital strategy review. The recommendation from that report was that the Council needs to develop its strategic approach to digital to act in accordance with the Sustainable Development Principles in the process of designing and delivering it, and to develop monitoring and evaluation arrangements for it. So the Council has reviewed the report and the recommendation and agreed the outcome. This report provides Governance and Audit Committee with the Council response to the recommendation in the form of an organisational response form, which can be seen in Appendix A. Audit Wales have confirmed that they're content that the findings and recommendation have been properly considered. So where are we now? The Council has put in place an officer-led working group to develop its digital and data strategy. The group is led by the Chief Executive and supported by officers from the IT section, executive support, cyber security and GDPR, and the membership of that team will be expanded as and when required against the needs and the delivery of the plan. We're currently in the design phase of the strategy. The Council has met with Audit Wales regarding the digital strategy report and recommendation as part of its regular meetings, and their feedback will be used to develop the plan from design to go live. It's important that we get the right strategy for MTCBC that's effective and efficient and enables us to support our residents. However, we must be realistic, especially when considering available resources such as staff time and finance. Therefore, we're going to be designing and developing the strategy in line with the budget setting process. This means that we'll be considering phasing the delivery of the strategy, but also prioritising any initiatives that are invest to save or help our services become more efficient. We're considering developing a digital and data strategy instead of two different strategies. This is to avoid confusion and potential duplication, and that also aligns better with the Welsh Government Digital Strategy for Wales, which has data as a theme within the digital strategy. We're building robust governance around the strategy, using existing processes and arrangements where possible to ensure that we are both effective but also efficient. This applies to development, but also following go live. The organisational response form has been completed and shared with Audit Wales, and Audit Wales, like I said, have accepted the details in the form. And the audit action plan has been updated to reflect the recommendation on the council response, and this will be monitored in line with the AAP monitoring process. So where we want to be is we want a strategy that's smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time-bound, and meets the needs of our stakeholders, especially our residents. As mentioned, we must ensure we allocate the right level of funding and staffing to deliver this strategy, which will mean prioritising initiatives. A project plan will be developed to ensure that we meet the timescale set out. Also, this will ensure that any officers are not included in the core working group can be communicated with early to inform them of the requirement of the skills to continue the progress of the plan. Regular reports will be taken to the Corporate Wellbeing Board to ensure delivery and accountability. Next steps, we're going to update the progress as per the reporting mechanism on the AAP system, continue to design and develop the strategy through our working group and expanding as required. And this will include several desktop exercises, which we're going to do around our data and things in our current position. We're going to conduct targeted engagement with stakeholders as and when required, and focus on allocation of resources, ensuring they're realistic and done in line with our current budget setting process, and integration with other strategies and plans to avoid duplication. And at the moment, there are no financial implications identified in this report. Obviously, that could change when we identify some digital projects later on, but that's further down the line. So that's it for me. So happy to take any questions or discussion.
Thank you, Richard. That's really helpful. And you kind of headed me off in the past a little bit because I was going to ask Audit Wales for views. But before I do that, I can see that Councillor Roberts has got his hand up. So, Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick one from myself. Obviously, digitalisation is the way forward. It seems to be the way that not just this local authority, but other local authorities and agencies are moving forward. How often does the working group meet is the first question. And I think you mentioned it. Will updates then be fed back to the Corporate Wellbeing Board, or will it come back to Audit or to Council? What's the mechanism, please, Ian?
Yeah, the working group has met twice so far. We haven't got regular meetings scheduled as yet. That'll kick off once the budget setting process is all out of the way. And yes, it is planned to report back to the group you mentioned there.
Yes, Alice Cooper.
Sorry, just to add for members' clarity and Councillor Roberts' question. So once we've got the Wellbeing Board, which will be the overarching governance mechanism for this strategy, because we've got existing groups set up on the two halves of the coin, really. So we've got Information Governance Forum, which very much already manages the information security and information sharing from a legal perspective for the authority. Now that will be one half of the data side of the strategy. Obviously, the digital transformation bit is very much more centered in terms of IT transformation. So it's bringing together the right level of officers to underpin that. But obviously, the reporting lines will go up then. So whilst we'll have almost a steering group mechanism looking at the development and delivery of the strategy, the governance then with political oversight will be at that wellbeing board. Now, whether the wellbeing board wants to allocate the remit of an adjunct to that to manage this specifically is all for discussion as we go.
Yeah, that's really helpful, because that was my question about how does this get monitored through various scrutiny committees, but that's really helpful to understand that. Ian, Deborah, I did trail. I might invite the Audit Wales to comment on the response set up by the council. Any views from either of you?
Yeah, I'll comment on that, Chair. Yeah, when we receive organisational response forms, our main focus is whether the council has considered any recommendations as properly, whether they've given proper consideration to it, which we thought was the case with this organisational response form, and there's dates in there, timescales, responsible officers. Basically, it gives us enough. If in due course we follow up this strategy review, which will no doubt do to some extent, whether that's formally or informally, we've got enough to go on to see what the council intends to do. We don't want to be too prescriptive about what the council intends to do, just that it is properly considered and we can see that has been the case, and we can then follow that up in a year or 2 years or whenever that may be, and see and hold the council to account in terms of progress for that.
Thank you, Ian. That's really helpful. Of course, there'll be follow-ups to this. We look forward to seeing how it progresses, but I don't see any further questions. So, Richard, thanks for presenting. Thank you. That takes us on to item 7, which is the Audit Wales work programme and timetable. Again, Ian, Deborah, whoever picks this up.
I'll pick that up. Thanks, Chair. So yeah, this is the work programme update for Q3 of 23-24, going up to the end of December 2023. It covers the position for our financial audit work, the local performance audit work, local government studies we do, national reports, and also updates from Eston and CIW. So you're used to this being on the agenda. Essentially, it's an item for information, but happy to take any questions. If it's a project that I'm not involved in, I'll take those questions away if I'm not cited the answer, and I'll liaise with that team before coming back to you. So happy to take any queries there may be.
Okay, I'll pick up the obvious one and then invite others to any questions. The obvious one is around the audit accounts. We're fast approaching March, and that means year end, and the thoughts turn to Audit Wales and the 23-24 audit of accounts timetable. Any information, any news for us?
I'll pass to my colleague Deborah on that one. Thanks.
Hi, Chair. As an organisation, we're in discussion at the moment with the local government organisations in order to work out a timetable, and there'll be a letter going out shortly, sort of setting out what our proposed timetable is for the 23-24 audits for local government bodies. So I think we'll be able to give you an update on that following the meeting.
Okay, thank you much. Can I ask whoever that letter lands with, can they share it with committee members when it comes out? Thank you. Just a couple of small, well, varying size issues. The page 33 of the bundle, page 1 of the report, says audit of grant claims is August to April 23. I think you mean August 23 to April 24, because they're still ongoing. I presume that's what that means. Under assurance work, if I turn over to page 34 of the bundle, it says consideration of other core arrangements and services, and it says complete. Most of them, when there's complete, there's a report published. Is there intended to be an output from that piece of work?
No, but what we mean by that with the assurance and risk assessment work, it is effectively ongoing. We have done a summary report in the past, but we don't tend to report. We do present to senior management in the we did actually a few weeks ago in January, and it's a conversation really. It's not the end point, but it's a conversation about the work we've done to date and possible topics for forthcoming audit, the forthcoming audit year. So there's not actually a written output with that, but it's an ongoing piece of work in the sense that we look to get at least high level coverage of as many council arrangements and services as we can. We won't be able to cover everything, but we feed in information into our assurance and risk assessment continually, and then that sort of gives us a position where we can determine where we can focus our resources in terms of actual local projects, or if there's wider things coming out, thematics that we may do across the piece.
Okay, that's really helpful. Again, you know, it's really, this is, I find, a really helpful signpost to all of the works that are currently floating around. I'm looking around the room. Any other questions for our Audit Wales colleagues? And looking online, of course. Okay, I don't see any further questions, so we will progress on to which I think is probably the meat of today's meeting, which is agenda item 8. The revenue budget for 24-25. I guess I hand to Liam to introduce, although we have a wide array of colleagues to support you. You go through this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the paper sets out the current financial position of the authority and brings forward a range of savings proposals to close what was at its highest point a £13.4 million gap. Members have had the opportunity to feed in views, and that's all members as well as lay members from all of our scrutiny committees as well across a range of workshops over the past couple of weeks. Assuming all of the savings within the report are agreed at council, the authority would still be faced with a budget gap of £1.7 million, and that's assuming a 4.7% increase in council tax and the use of 1.5 million of earmarked reserves. Since these papers were published, some additional work has been undertaken, and you may have seen that additional proposals have been put forward in terms of how we plan to close that £1.7 million gap. And the proposals that are going to council and cabinet this Wednesday are to increase council tax by 8% and an additional 500,000 use of earmarked reserves, which in my opinion is the absolute maximum amount of earmarked reserves that we could use without risking the financial sustainability of the authority. So I hadn't planned on going through the proposals on an individual basis, given the amount of scrutiny they've had over the past 2 weeks or so. But CMT are here to take any questions or comments on those. But members are asked to note the content of the report and discuss and give feedback on its content. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Liam. That's really helpful. Again, I think it's probably worth just starting by saying the role of this committee is not to get into the weeds about budget setting, but to have assurance that there has been a proper budget setting process. It's been fortunate that we as lay members have been invited, as well as all the councillors, to the various Q&A sessions that have been held over the past few weeks. I found that really helpful and able to see firsthand the processes that have been happening. So members have had a couple of opportunities to ask questions. They've seen all the detailed business cases. And of course, the final bite of the cherry, as far as I understand, is Cabinet and Council on Wednesday. So again, that's the opportunity there. But if anything has come up through seeing the papers that are presented to you today that anyone wants to raise, then please, you have the opportunity now. Okay, I guess everyone's been sort of question and answered into silence on these. They've had plenty of opportunity to raise them. I think one point I would say is budget setting is not an easy process, and clearly the Section 151 officer has a lot of responsibility to make recommendations to the council, and particularly around use of reserves, which is always an emotive topic. I know reserves are there for rainy days, and people could say it's raining pretty hard right now. but reserves have been used in previous years, and there's a recommendation here we don't exceed the level that's been proposed here today. So I think we need to listen to those kind of messages. I think that's why we have expert officers to guide us. But that's really helpful, and good luck with the final challenges conversations on Wednesday, and good luck with the communications to the public of what the final figures might be. Thank you. Okay, that's it. Okay, we'll have the second opportunity to revisit some of the stuff in the closed session at the end of the meeting as well. Just a note. We'll quickly move on, therefore, to agenda item 9, which is the forward work programme. Am I looking over to my audit colleagues? I see Lisa indicating. So Lisa, I'll hand over to you.
9 is the Governance and Audit Committee Forward Work Programme for 23-24. You'll be aware this is a report that we bring to each meeting and ask members to approve. So the purpose of the report is just to provide you at each meeting with an updated forward work programme, and that's to ensure that due consideration is given to all aspects of core functions. And the work programme for 23-24 is attached at Appendix A to the report. So within the main body of the report, there is a table at paragraph 4.2 of the items that are scheduled to be presented to the next meeting on the 15th of April. Now, the forward work programme currently lists 9 items in total, but it's possible that the annual Audit Wales summary report for 2024 will also be presented next time. So this could be subject to change for the next meeting. So at the moment, the 9 items proposed for the next meeting is the quarterly update on corporate risks for Q3, the rolling programme corporate risk update on homelessness, an update, 6-monthly update on the AGS, the Ombudsman complaints report, external audit recommendations, the Audit Wales outline plan for 2024. There's a Governance and Audit Committee self-assessment against the SIPA checklist, and then the committee updated forward work programme and internal audit information reports. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lisa. That's really helpful. Your mention of the self-assessment reminds me that Democratic Services emailed out last week the questionnaire, a gentle nudge to all members of the committee to complete that by the deadline in that email. So we've got some meat to have that conversation at our next meeting. Understanding that the ambition there is to understand the skill mix we've got here, what other perhaps training we need to ensure that this committee is an effective one. So we'll have that conversation at our next meeting in April. The other thing I noticed is that we have provisional dates in there for June and July. Everything's subject to the AGM, but request please to even tentative dates, if you can share those with everyone, they can get them in diaries and make sure we don't have to reschedule anything. It'd be really helpful. Thank you. Anything else on the forward plan for anybody? Yeah, we'll move on to agenda item 10, which is the internal audit reports. You will see from the reports that there are 4 reasonable assurance reports that have been done. Helen, you're going to quickly talk us through them? Or Lisa? Okay, Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. So this report concerns the internal audit information reports, and the purpose of the report is to inform members of the committee of the issued finalised audit reports for the period 6th of January to the 16th of February. Copies of these reports have already been provided to members, and members, if they wish to review or consider these reports in more detail at a future meeting, they can. So table 1 at paragraph 3.1 of the report shows that during that period we've issued 4 finalised internal audit reports, all of which relate to 2023-24. Within the table, we've also shown for each of the reports the audit opinion, the number of recommendations that we have made, and whether they are of a high, medium or low priority. So the 4 reports are capital accounting and asset register, the early help hub, taxation and grounds maintenance. And I think it's pleasing to note that we've given each of those either a reasonable assurance or a substantial assurance audit opinion, and all the recommendations made have been either a medium or a low priority. Good.
Thank you, Lisa. Positive results on all 4 audits, which is pleasing to note, and there aren't any high recommendations within any of those reports either. Members will have seen the papers, these audit reports circulated on modern.gov. If anyone has any specific questions, they want to raise to Lisa? Everyone is stunned into silence. Excellent. Good. No news is good news, I guess, in that regard. We tend to look, the nature of these committees is we try to find the bad things and to challenge, and when things are going well, I guess we should acknowledge those as well. We'll quickly turn the page onto item 11, which is reflection and evaluation, which is a little unfair because we have a closed session to go yet. So perhaps we can park that for the moment. Moving on to item 12, any other business deemed urgent by the chair. And Liam, I think you wanted to talk about audit services.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So our current contract with the internal audit shared service is due to expire on the 31st of March of this year after an initial 5-year period. So there'll be a paper going to Cabinet in March, which is recommending that we extend that contract. We've got a good working relationship with our colleagues in internal audit, and we're happy with the service that's been provided. Members will recall at the January meeting, I provided an update in terms of RCT, who are one of the 4 partners involved in the partnership, withdrawing from the partnership in early April. They were quite clear that wasn't linked to the performance of the service in any way, just they wanted to go in a different direction. And I've had assurances from Andrew that that our level of service won't be affected by that, and there's contingency plans in place. So at this point, it was just to update the committee on that work. What I will do is, once that Cabinet report is ready in draft form, I'll circulate it to committee members, and if anyone has any queries, concerns, or questions, to come back to myself and the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. That's helpful to understand where we are. It's a the service continues as a 3-legged beast rather than a 4-legged beast, but effectively it's unaffected by that. The services we've been delivered, although it might be by some different people, will continue to be unaffected. So I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you. We now turn to the exempt section of the papers. So I think I need to read this out. In order for the following to be considered in private, it's suggested the meeting be excluded from the public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 13, 14, 15, part 4, schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Do we need to vote on that, or are we happy to that it just happens? Okay, should we just do a simple show of hands? Is that simple enough? Okay, there's a show of hands, and thank you. That's clearly carried in favour. Thank you, everybody. So we'll now move into closed session, and item 14